What if the very words meant to clarify your work are the ones keeping you confused? We've all been there, lost in meetings full of big words that feel hollow, or hesitant to speak up because we don't know the jargon. But here's the twist. Jargon isn't the enemy, silence is. In fact, the right words, like flow, agency, or contingency, don't complicate your thinking. They sharpen it. This video will show you how mastering so-called jargon can unlock your voice and turn friction into your most powerful thinking tool. In any professional setting, whether you're in a meeting, giving a presentation, or negotiating with a partner, how you speak shapes how you're seen. It's not just what you know, it's how clearly and confidently you can express it. And for that, language is your most powerful tool. But here's the challenge. Professional environments are full of specialized language, and to many, this can feel intimidating or exclusionary. Maybe you've heard someone dismiss a term as just jargon or felt lost in a conversation filled with acronyms and abstract buzzwords. That's why learning to speak professionally isn't about using fancy words. It's about mastering the right words and using them with purpose. This video is about giving you that kind of professional confidence. We'll explore how specialized vocabulary, what some call jargon, can actually empower you to think more clearly, collaborate more effectively, and lead with insight. And we'll introduce a powerful method to sharpen your thinking, juxtaposition.
We often hear the word jargon used as a criticism, something confusing, unnecessary, or elitist. It's the kind of language that makes people tune out or feel excluded. But let's pause and look more closely. Jargon, at its best, is simply specialized language. It's the vocabulary developed within a profession to describe things precisely. Engineers, doctors, logisticians, designers, we all rely on technical language to work faster, think more clearly, and solve more complex problems. It's not the presence of jargon that causes confusion. It's when it's misused, overused, or poorly understood. In this video, when we talk about jargon, we're reclaiming the term not as something to avoid, but as something to master. Because when you truly understand the right terms, like flow, agency, contingency, or systems thinking, they become more than words. They become tools for insight, coordination, and leadership. And to make those tools sharp, we use a particular method throughout this series: juxtaposition, the deliberate act of placing contrasting ideas side by side. Juxtaposition helps us see what was previously invisible. It creates tension, contrast, and often, surprising clarity. It invites new understanding by setting one thing against another. So where does this idea come from?
The word juxtaposition entered English in the 17th century from Latin and French roots meaning placed next to. Originally descriptive, it later became a powerful analytical tool across many disciplines. In semiotics and structural linguistics, contrast between signs is what gives meaning. Words only make sense in relation to what they're not. In dialectical philosophy, from Hegel to Adorno, placing contradictions side by side is what produces movement, transformation, and deeper understanding. In cognitive science, researchers like Fauconnier and Turner have shown how placing different concepts in proximity, what they call conceptual blending, leads to emergent insights that neither idea contains alone. In systems thinking, literature, and design, juxtaposition is used to surface paradoxes, provoke reflection, and guide creative problem-solving.
In all of these domains, friction isn't something to avoid, it's something to work with. Tension creates energy. It pushes thought forward. In supply chain management and logistics, this is especially relevant. Professionals here are constantly navigating the flow of goods, information, and decisions through complex networks. Problems don't always present themselves neatly. They emerge at the points where ideas, timelines, or goals collide. That's where juxtaposition becomes powerful. It helps expose the real challenges, clarify what matters, and drive toward effective solutions. Everyday logistics operations, for example, involve juxtaposing systems with reality. The ideal flow with real-world constraints. You place a perfect plan next to a late shipment. an algorithm next to human experience, a policy next to a customer need. That gap, that contrast, isn't a failure. It's an opportunity. It generates friction, and friction stimulates creative thought. It guides you toward solutions you wouldn't see if everything just went according to plan.
Sometimes, those solutions are even surprising, because systems thinkers in logistics don't just move goods, they move value by connecting insight, infrastructure, people, and purpose. So, in this video, we treat juxtaposition as a thinking tool, a way to generate insight, stimulate creative solutions, and move from confusion to clarity. That's why it's so central to supply chain management, to leadership, and to how we navigate complexity.
Now let's turn to 5 powerful terms that often show up in logistics, management, and professional strategy: flow, agency, contingency, feedback, and systems thinking. These aren't just buzzwords, they're lenses. But their real power comes when we place them in contrast with other ideas. Because it's often the tension between terms, not the terms themselves, that guides us toward meaningful action. Today's world is built on complexity. Supply chains, data systems, AI-driven workflows, service networks. These are all interdependent structures in constant motion. And in complexity, words are not decorative. They are strategic. They help you name what's happening and shape what comes next. This is where terminology becomes more than just technical vocabulary. It becomes a way of discovering how systems actually work. As the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein emphasized in his later work, language is not merely a system of definitions, it's a way of life. He introduced the idea of language games, the notion that words gain meaning through how they're used in real-world contexts, through shared human activity. For Wittgenstein, life itself is a form of exploration, a path of discovery, through how we speak, interpret, and coordinate meaning together. Understanding language is understanding how we move through life, professionally and personally. So when we talk about terms like flow, agency, or feedback, we're not just referencing abstract concepts, we're learning how to see, coordinate, and act in real systems. These terms are part of how professionals play the game of making things work. That's why we're focusing on 5 powerful terms: flow, agency, contingency, feedback, and systems thinking. When clearly understood and applied, these words become more than vocabulary. They become instruments of shared understanding and intelligent leadership. And when we juxtapose them with contrasting ideas, we sharpen their meaning even more. We see what each term does by setting it against its opposite. Let's begin with flow. In logistics, flow is about how goods move, how materials, money, or information pass through systems. Smooth flow means efficiency. Disrupted flow means delay. Now place that next to how thoughts flow in a conversation, or how emotions flow through a team. One is tangible and physical, the other is intangible and psychological. By juxtaposing these types of flow, we begin to see the common thread: direction, rhythm, and connection. Flow isn't just a technical concept, it's human. Understanding both dimensions helps you lead with emotional and operational intelligence. Let's turn now to agency, the capacity to make reasoned decisions and act on them. Agency is what gives both humans and systems the power to influence outcomes. It's the ability to navigate options, evaluate alternatives, and choose a path forward. But agency never exists in a vacuum. In systems design, especially in complex environments like logistics, production management, or AI integration, agency is often distributed. Machines follow algorithms. Automated processes make decisions based on predefined rules. In this context, agency isn't located in a single person or component. It's spread across a network of actors, technologies, and routines. Now, shift focus to human agency. Here, the picture becomes more layered. Human decisions are rarely just about logic. They're shaped by values, experience, professional training, intuition, and even the emotions of the moment. A logistics coordinator reroutes shipments not only based on data, but also based on how they interpret risk, pressure, and trust in their team. A production planner might override software because they foresee a quality issue the system cannot detect. In these moments, agency expresses itself not just through control, but through discernment.
Now juxtapose agency with the structure that surrounds it. This is where the contrast gets interesting and useful. Structures include the systems, policies, procedures, and constraints that govern action. They define roles, boundaries, and decision rights. And at first glance, it might seem that structure restricts agency, that rules suppress freedom, that automation replaces human thinking. But here's the insight: effective systems don't eliminate agency, they enable it.
Constraints can clarify. Clear boundaries help decision makers focus on what really matters. A well-designed workflow doesn't reduce the planner's role, it sharpens it. Automation doesn't remove human responsibility, it repositions it. By taking care of the repetitive or rule-based tasks, automation frees up human cognition for more nuanced, high-value decision-making. In this way, designing for agency means intentionally creating environments, both technical and organizational, that support intelligent action. It means providing the right tools, data, authority, and feedback loops for people and machines to make decisions that are both fast and thoughtful. It's about creating a context where choices are not just possible, but effective. In supply chains, for instance, resilience often depends not on centralized control, but on distributed agency. Local actors who can make rapid decisions in the face of disruption. In AI-supported production, agency may shift between human supervisors and predictive models, each with different strengths working together. In management, empowering teams with agency is what makes innovation and adaptation possible. So the real challenge isn't choosing between freedom and structure. It's recognizing that the tension between them is what makes systems dynamic, adaptable, and intelligent.
Agency, then, isn't just about the ability to choose. It's about being situated in a system that makes meaningful choice possible. And when we design systems, technical or social, that support this kind of intelligent choice-making, we unlock the full potential of both human and artificial intelligence. Then there's contingency, the idea that outcomes depend on context. In professional life, this isn't just a theory, it's a survival skill. Contingency thinking accepts that there is no one-size-fits-all. Instead, it emphasizes fit, adaptability, and responsiveness to the environment.
Contingency stands in contrast to standardization, where standardization seeks efficiency through repetition. Through predefined procedures, best practices, and universal rules, contingency reminds us that what works here may fail there. A logistics strategy that succeeds in one region might collapse under different infrastructure, weather, or political conditions. A management style that motivates one team might alienate another. Now juxtapose contingency with flow. Flow in logistics and systems management is often idealized as smooth, efficient, and uninterrupted. But in reality, flow is never fixed. It bends, pauses, adapts. Roads get blocked, plans unravel, people make mistakes, technologies glitch. Here, juxtaposition of contingency is what keeps the system alive. It awakes us to awareness of our uncertainty. It introduces flexibility and responsiveness into what might otherwise be a rigid pipeline. But contingency isn't just a reactive posture, it's also proactive. Professionals working in complex or turbulent environments don't merely wait for disruptions, they prepare for them. That's where the term contingencies, in the plural, comes into play. In practice, contingencies include backup plans, alternative routes, extra suppliers, spare capacity, latent systems. They're potentials that stay dormant until activated by necessity. In project planning, risk management, or military logistics, contingency plans are not signs of weakness, they're marks of wisdom. They reflect an understanding that the world is unruly and that resilience means being ready for variation. In a systems context, this links directly to situational fit. Rather than chasing abstract perfection, resilient professionals aim for contextual adequacy. They ask, what does this situation require? What does this environment afford? What risks lie hidden in plain sight? So, to think in terms of contingency is to embrace complexity, not fear it. It's to acknowledge that value is produced not only by what's planned, but by how well we adapt when plans change. This mindset values improvisation, modularity, and the wisdom to choose flexibility over rigid control. Ultimately, contingency thinking is a cornerstone of modern professionalism. It moves us away from false certainty and toward informed responsiveness. It tells us, don't seek universal answers, design local solutions, and keep your backup ready. Because in a dynamic world, it's the ability to pivot that keeps flow alive. Now we arrive at feedback loops, the cycles through which systems monitor, evaluate, and respond to their own performance. Feedback is what allows a system, whether mechanical, digital, or human, to self-correct. It's how airplanes stay on course, how thermostats regulate temperature, and how businesses navigate shifting markets. Juxtapose feedback loops with linear execution, the idea of carrying out a plan from start to finish without pause or adjustment. The contrast couldn't be sharper. Linear execution assumes stability, feedback assumes change. Juxtaposition here reveals something powerful. Feedback turns action into adaptation. Without feedback, systems repeat. They loop blindly, even if the environment has shifted. But with feedback, systems learn. They adjust. They evolve. And this is where feedback becomes more than just a reporting mechanism. It becomes a learning engine. In management, operations, and logistics, feedback loops are how organizations identify what's working, what's not, and where improvement is possible. In agile workflows, for example, feedback is constant, from customers, from data, from employees. It doesn't just fine-tune the product, it reshapes the process. Over time, this transforms routine execution into dynamic capability. But feedback by itself isn't enough. There's another contrast to draw. Feedback without agency is noise. If people receive data but aren't empowered to act on it, it creates frustration, not learning. Conversely, agency without feedback is blindness. Decisions are made in the dark, without reflection or correction. That's why leaders and system designers make sure both are in place. They create loops where people and systems not only receive feedback, but also have the power to respond. This interaction is what drives continuous improvement, and continuous improvement is what creates competitive advantage. Because here's the deeper truth: learning is a strategic asset. In fast-moving, uncertain, and highly competitive environments, organizations that learn faster than their competitors gain an edge. They spot problems earlier. They recover from disruptions quicker. They capitalize on emerging opportunities before others even notice them. This is the difference between a company that merely operates and one that evolves. In today's economy, markets shift, customer expectations rise, technologies disrupt entire industries overnight. The only constant is change, and feedback loops are what turn change into progress. So, when you build feedback into your systems, whether technical systems or team processes, you're not just optimizing performance. You're building the infrastructure for strategic learning. You're securing a foundation for resilience, innovation, and competitive differentiation.
In short, feedback isn't about going in circles. It's about spiraling upward, reflecting, adjusting, and growing stronger with every cycle. Bringing all of this together is systems thinking. It's the mental habit of seeing connections, not just parts. It stands in contrast to siloed thinking, where we optimize one piece without seeing its impact on the rest.
Juxtapose systems thinking with reductionism, and you realize clarity comes not from simplification, but from integration. It's not about breaking things down, it's about understanding how they relate, interact, and evolve over time. Nowhere is this more essential than in supply chain management and logistics. These fields are systems thinking in action. They require coordination across functions, organizations, geographies, and time horizons, procurement, production, transport, warehousing, distribution, all nested within networks of shifting conditions and competing demands. That's why networking, when rooted in systems thinking, becomes more than maintaining contacts. It becomes strategic alignment. It enables professionals to trace dependencies, anticipate ripple effects, and co-create solutions with partners who share neither the same constraints nor the same priorities. And here's where juxtapositioning plays its powerful role. In logistics, we constantly place opposing elements side by side: urgency versus accuracy, cost versus quality, centralization versus flexibility, speed versus sustainability. These contrasts are not obstacles. They stimulate our awareness. They are thus productive tensions. Juxtaposition creates friction, and in that friction lies insight. It forces us to pause, to reflect, to ask, what really matters here? How can we reconcile what seems irreconcilable? This friction stimulates creative thinking. It opens up space for innovation, not by removing complexity, but by facing it. Professionals in SCM learn to navigate this friction, not by simplifying choices, but by orchestrating trade-offs in pursuit of shared goals. So when we say that everyday logistics operations involve juxtapositioning, we mean that logistics is a field where real-time decisions are made under pressure, across boundaries, amid uncertainty, and that solutions emerge not from certainty, but from skillfully managing tension. This is logistics not as mechanical execution, but as adaptive sense-making in motion. Supply chains aren't just pipelines. They are networks of interdependence, and to operate them well, you need more than tools. You need the ability to think relationally, act systemically, and engage creatively with constraint. Systems thinkers in logistics don't just move goods, they move value by connecting insight, infrastructure, people, and purpose. And here's the deeper point. When you approach logistics this way, seeing tensions as creative fuel and juxtaposition as a thinking tool, you open the door to outcomes that are not only effective, but also surprising. Solutions emerge that no single stakeholder could have designed alone. New partnerships form. A constraint in one area sparks transformation in another. This is the quiet brilliance of systems thinking in practice. It doesn't aim to eliminate uncertainty. It leverages it. It treats friction not as failure, but as the spark for new directions. And that's what makes logistics at its best not just a function, but a source of insight, agility, and renewal across the entire value network. Let's step back. When you can name what's going on, when you can identify a broken flow, a missing feedback loop, or a constraint on agency, you become the person who sees clearly. And in complexity, clarity is power. Juxtaposition helps you get there. By contrasting different forms, you uncover what's essential. You don't just talk about complexity, you learn how to act within it. So here's the final contrast: language and leadership. One defines meaning, the other defines direction. Put them side by side and you see the real message of this video. Those who shape meaning can also shape action. That's what strategic language does. It helps us think, coordinate, and change. This is not about jargon as fluff. It's about terminology as a toolkit. The ability to speak fluently about flow, agency, feedback, contingency, and systems is the ability to lead effectively.
If you want to become someone who navigates complexity with confidence, build your professional vocabulary. These aren't just words, they're ways of seeing. My book and course will give you the language, the concepts, and the mindset to lead in a complex world. Because when you can name what matters, you can change what matters. All right, let's try this out for real. We've been talking a lot about juxtaposition, putting things side by side to see what sparks. So let's do it together right now, using something that's on everyone's mind, AI. Now, take AI and place it next to logistics and production management. Just hold them up together, side by side. What do you notice? AI is fast. It's predictive. It runs on data. It's great at spotting patterns and optimizing at scale. Now think about logistics and production. They're physical, messy, human. They deal with materials, machines, deadlines, and real-world disruptions. So here's the interesting part. What happens when we place them in contrast? You start to feel the tension, right? AI wants clean data. Logistics often runs on incomplete information. AI assumes things can be predicted. Production managers know that change is constant. AI can suggest the best plan, but someone still has to make it happen. But don't stop there. The goal isn't to pick sides, it's to learn something. So, ask yourself, what insights come from putting these two together? Maybe you realize AI can't do much without good human judgment. Maybe you see that supply chains don't just need data, they need feedback loops to keep that data relevant. Or maybe you notice that to use AI well, you need contingency thinking, knowing when to trust the model and when to trust your gut. That's the beauty of juxtaposition. It's not about being clever, it's about seeing clearly. Here's a little challenge. Try this again later. Pick two ideas from your own work, maybe automation versus human intuition, or central control versus local adaptation. Set them side by side. Ask, what's the friction? What does it reveal? You'll be surprised how quickly that simple move, just comparing two things, opens up a whole new way of thinking. Because that's the skill we're building here. The ability to think in contrasts, to reflect in systems, and to lead through complexity.